I stopped playing games to focus on my career. Kim kept playing games and turned it into a career, and that really bugs me that he thought of that and I didn't. So Kim's had a fantastic, very, very distinguished career. For those of you that are of our generation, Kim worked at Lycos back in the day. He was the Vice President of esports for CBS. And today is heading up Kinguin's efforts in this space. So could we please give Kim a very warm welcome?
Thank you very much. I'm going to try my luck with this thing. It works. This is amazing. Okay, so thank you guys. My name is Kim, as he said. I'm the Chief Gaming Officer. That was the official title. And it was a title we didn't really know what I was supposed to do at Kinguin when I started there. And we were wondering what I could do. And the only thing I could come up with was actually the gameplay and having a knowledge about games. So we decided to take it all the way. This presentation here, and I'll have one more later, that's the boring one with numbers that I think you guys will like more than probably this one. I wanted to just tell you guys why we do what we do. We did $92 million in turnover last year in digital games. We're a 5-year-old company, and a lot of things have happened in 5 years. Well, you guys are experts in crypto, most of you, so you have seen what can happen in 5 years. The whole world can basically change around us. The same thing has more or less happened in gaming. So let me get started. Pong was the first commercial game in the history of mankind. It wasn't the first game ever, but it was the first commercial game. It was installed in Andy Capp's Tavern in Sunnyvale, California in 1972, and it was a magical moment in human history. It means that I can do nothing for a living today and still make money on it. What happened back then was that Atari took the first prototype of an arcade machine and they put it into a tavern, and it broke down. It was in operation for less than 7 hours, and then the whole thing crashed. The day after, the co-founder of Atari showed up at the tavern, and he discovered 3 different things. One, there was a line of people waiting to get into this scummy tavern, which they had never ever experienced before. 2, microtransactions sucked from the beginning, because what had actually happened was that the machine had short-circuited because people had put in quarters that had electronically short-circuited the whole system. And the third thing that no one really thought about back then was that competitive gaming was born. Pong was a 2-player game. It had 2 paddles. So that was actually where esports also started. I later met Nolan Bushnell and had a discussion with him about it, and he actually back then had an idea about what esports would become. Gaming has changed a lot since then. The sky used to be blue. Do you remember the games from the old days? Everything was like blue, positive. That's a really expensive Lotus, sorry. That's a really expensive Lotus. And in Outrun, when you crashed it into a tree, your girlfriend would get tipped out of the car and she would look at you and go like, that was like the worst thing that could happen. Here's another example of a blue sky. And here's what games looks like today. They're all like post-apocalyptic. They're all like, the world has been destroyed, there are zombies everywhere, no one is happy, everything is gray. We used to wait a long time for games to be published. This is Half-Life 2. I think I spent roughly 8 years of my life waiting for that game after I had reviewed the first one. We still wait for games today, but we pre-order them. And by pre-ordering games and giving the publisher money before we actually get any kind of value from them, they promise us an orange hat and a gun, something that will make us happy. It's basically shiny trinkets to get our money. We still wait forever and ever and ever for games. This is Half-Life 3 illustration, a game that I probably won't ever see light of day. The difference today is now we also crowdfund the people we get angry at for not delivering the games that we want. This is Star Citizen, a game that's raised more than $100 million in crowdfunding. It's 7 years too late right now. 7 years. It's amazing, right? Microtransactions used to be micro. I covered Pong, started with a quarter. This is a horse armor from a Bethesda game that cost $8.99. When that came out, people looked at the horse armor for your fucking horse, and thought that was like the worst, dumbest thing that they had ever heard. That's 7 years ago. 6 weeks ago, a Counter-Strike rifle, a rifle in Counter-Strike, was sold for $61,000. That was the amount of money that it cost to get a rifle in Counter-Strike that had a slightly different skin than all the other guys. We used to buy games, and when we bought games, we got stuff. This is Elite, a game on Commodore 64. It was awesome. I had that poster hanging on my wall for like 3 years. You know, back then when I didn't know what girls were. Today, we don't buy our games, they're free to play. We log onto a server, there's like stuff that happens in cyberspace, and we can get like different heroes. We don't have anything we can put on a wall, which actually may be a good thing now that I think about it. We used to collect games, which is a natural thing. When you buy them, you put them on a shelf so you can show your nerdhood to other nerds. Today, we pre-order a season pass, which basically means that whenever the publisher decides to put in more content for the same game that we've already paid for, we pay them more money, and we can get more shiny stuff, and that's all we get. Gameplay used to be incredibly simple. Open blue door so you can find the red key so you can open the red door. It was a very linear, colorful progression through games back then. Today, gameplay has become meta. What does meta mean? It means that the opponents, the game design that actually happens in games, are no longer, done by some genius. Other people, the people that you play against, have become the content of the game. And we'll get a lot into that later. Enemies in games used to be really dumb. This is Golden Axe. It was an arcade game, and it was very, very easy to like pinpoint where the hammer would fall from those big dudes. If you got hit by a hammer in the arcade, other people would like look at you and make fun of you. That was like the worst thing that could happen. Today, enemies are smart. This is Team Kinguin. It's a Dota 2 team. I had them living in my house for 3 months. Can you believe it? The guy on the right has 15,000 hours of playtime in Dota. He spent the last 3 years of his life devoting that almost like a martial artist to become the world champion in Dota. And he will not stop until he's become the world champion. Can I ask you in here, how many of you have put 15,000 hours into anything in your life? See? And he hasn't won yet. This is scary, right? Game designers used to look like this. This is the creator of Mario. He has created some of the most fantastic universes that has ever been done in video games. Today, game designers look roughly like that. They're not even called game designers anymore. They're called monetization designers. And that's because the gameplay, as I said, has become other people. So basically now, the way you're successful in publishing is that you know how to monetize the audience that you can attract, how to squeeze the most amount of money out of them. Player exploitation, the worst thing that could happen to a player, used to look like that. That is Dragon's Lair. It was an arcade game that costs roughly 700 times more than any other game in the arcade back then. And when you would die, you had no idea why. You would like see an awesome animation that was done as a hand-drawn cartoon, and then you would be dead. You had no idea why. Today, player exploitation looks like that. This is the latest Star Wars game from Electronic Arts. And what they had done in the game is they have literally removed linear progression. A game is defined by the fact that it's interactive and that you progress throughout the game. You meet challenges, you grow your character, you become better. They removed that for a loot drop system where the mathematical chances of you actually progressing without having to buy something within the span of 9 months was calculated to being less than 1%. They had to retract the game and actually redo it because the outrage was from the community was that big. For the last 7 years, every single year, the International in Dota, which is a tournament that happens in Seattle mostly, has been world record breaking. We've gone from like having $1 million in prize money, which was a revelation in 2012, to last year having a prize pool of $24 million. There were 5 dudes that won that tournament, and they all walked away with more than $2 million each. They also deserved it because it's a really tough game, but like $2 million. Even that has now gone the way of the dodo. This is how Blizzard uses crowdfunding to source basically their tournaments. What happens is that they will raise a couple of millions from their audience on regular tournaments and patches. They will take, as you can see, $250,000 and actually give it back to the audience. The rest goes into supporting the production of their cost. Innovation used to be sweet. And by that I mean cake is a lie. This is a meme that came from Portal 2 by Valve, which was like a game that, like Half-Life 2, introduced new ways of interacting with the game world. Today, innovation in gaming looks like that, apart from the weird bug in my PowerPoint presentation. This is a patent that basically enables players that plays Activision games that once you have bought a skin, you will be paired with players of lesser quality than yourself, so you can feel victorious with your new gun that you just bought. It's just disgusting. Absolutely. The smartest people on Earth used to say things about being crazy. I think we've all known and seen that quote before. The smartest game player in the universe is, in my opinion, this guy. He's Danish, by the way, like I am. He is the COO of a team called Team OG. That's a player that talks about going full retard. When he means with full retard is that when you play against 9 other people on the server and they don't want to play the game like you do, the only word that really can describe the experience is probably retard. So I'll come back to this, but the reason why we are here today and the reason why we're doing an ICO and the reason why we think that we can change gaming is because we think there's a lot of things broken in the industry. The players are not being treated with respect and they're not being allowed to monetize the skill set. The 15,000 hour guy, he can't really do anything unless he wins a tournament. That's a problem. Thank you.